Hope all of you are fine. Let us move to today's class by a silent prayer. So dear students, now let us move to today's class. I know that all of you like to play. Let me ask you a question. Do you prefer indoor games or outdoor games? Yes, most of you prefer outdoor games. Can you name some outdoor games? Oh yes, football, cricket, basketball, etc. are some outdoor games. Now let us imagine a situation. You are playing a football. Let me ask you a question. Can you relate the motion of a ball with any scientific concept, especially from physics? Oh, I think that you are confused. So let us find the answer to this question in today's class. You would be able to answer to my question after completing this session. Let us move to today's class. So dear students, now let us do an activity. Before that, you have learned in the previous class that the state of rest and state of motion. Dear students, carefully observe the state of the object and what make the object to change its state. We need a ball to do this activity. Initially, I place the ball at the table and the ball is at rest. Now, the ball changes the state of rest into state of motion. And now it changes into state of rest. I think the activity is clear to you. Initially, the ball is at rest and it changes its state of rest into state of motion and it again changes into state of rest. So, dear students, now let us discuss some questions. First question, initially the ball is at a state of dash. Yes, the ball is at the state of rest. Second question, what made the ball to change its state? Yes, it is an external unbalanced force. Initially, the ball is at rest. When I give an external unbalanced force, the ball changes its state of rest into state of motion. And when I put another unbalanced external force or I apply another unbalanced external force, the ball changes its state of motion into state of rest. That is, unbalanced external force make the ball to change its state of rest into state of motion and to change its state of motion into state of rest. That means in order to change the state of the ball, we need to apply an external unbalanced force. Third question, what can you conclude from this activity? Yes, every body continues to be in its state of rest or in state of motion unless an external force is applied on it. Now let us conclude this small session as every body continues to be in state of rest or in state of motion unless an external unbalanced force is applied on it. And this is known as Newton's first law of motion. I think Newton's first law of motion is clear to you.
Dear students, now let us watch a video. Carefully observe what happens to the passenger in a train when the train suddenly stops and what happens to the passenger when the train suddenly starts.
So dear students, now let us discuss some questions. First question, what happens to the passenger when the train suddenly stops? Yes, the passenger moves forward when the train suddenly stops. Second question, what happens to the passenger when the train suddenly starts? S. The passenger move backwards when the train suddenly starts. Third question, what can you conclude from this? S. The body has the tendency to remain in its state of rest or in state of motion.
Dear students, now let us watch a video. This video shows different types of inertia. Dear students, carefully observe and realize different types of inertia.
Dear students, now let us discuss some questions. First question, what happens when the pedaling of the bicycle suddenly stops? S. The bicycle moves forward. Second question, what may be the reason? S. It is due to inertia of motion. That means the pedaling of bicycle shows the motion, and when we suddenly stop the pedaling, we have seen that inertia is the tendency of a body to continue in its state of rest or in state of motion. So that's why the bicycle moves forward due to inertia of motion, because the bicycle has the tendency to continue in the state of motion. Third question, what happens to the passenger in a bus when the bus suddenly moves? S. The passenger in the bus moves backward. What may be the reason? S. Initially, when the bus is at rest, the passenger is also at the state of rest. When the bus suddenly starts, due to inertia, it has the tendency to remain its original state, that is the state of rest. So, due to inertia of rest, the passenger moves backward when the bus is suddenly starts. Fourth question, what are the different types of inertia? Yes, there are two types of inertia of rest and inertia of motion. Students, now let us do an activity. We need a glass, a piece of paper and a coin. I place the piece of paper over the glass. Now I place a coin. Dear students, carefully observe what happens to the coin when the paper is suddenly removed, and also the state of the coin. Now let us do the activity. Hope this activity is clear to you. So dear students, now let us discuss some questions. First question, the coin is at the state of dash. S. The coin is at the state of rest. Second question. What happens to the coin when the card or paper is suddenly taken? S. The coin falls into the glass. We have seen in the activity that when we suddenly remove the paper, the coin falls into the glass. What may be the reason? Yes, it is due to inertia, or it is due to inertia of rest. Initially, the coin is at rest, isn't it? But when I suddenly remove the paper, due to inertia of rest, the coin falls into the glass. That means the coin falls into the glass due to inertia of rest.
Dear students, this slide shows the picture of three situations from our life. Carefully observe and realize each situation into an example of inertia of rest or inertia of motion. First one, an athlete taking a short run before a jump. Second one, striking the coin at the pile of a carom. Third one, shaking the branches of tree.
Dear students, you have observed the slide which shows three situations from our daily life, isn't it? Then let me ask you a question. Can you be able to classify these situations into an example of any scientific phenomenon? Yes, we can classify these three situations into an example of inertia. Or we can classify these situations into an example for inertia. Dear students, now let us complete the table. Here, three situations are given. We should identify each situation into an example of inertia of rest or inertia of motion. First one, on shaking the branches of a tree. Second question, athletes taking a short run before a jump. Third one, striking the coin at the bottom of a pile of carom coins. First question, on shaking the branches of a tree. Is it an example for inertia of rest or inertia of motion? Yes, it is an example for inertia of rest. What may be the reason? Yes, initially the branches of a tree are at rest, but when we shake the tree, it has the tendency to remain in the state of rest. So, it is an example for inertia of rest. Second question, athletes taking a short run before a jump. Is it an example for inertia of rest or inertia of motion? Yes, it is an example for inertia of motion. Then, why it is an example for inertia of motion? Okay, if the athlete jump from the starting point before taking a short run, he could not be able to jump a longer distance due to inertia of rest. But if the athlete take a short run before a jump, due to inertia of motion, he could be able to run a longer distance. That's why athletes taking a short run before a jump is an example for inertia of motion. Next, last situation, striking the coin at the bottom of a pile of carom's coin. Is it an example for inertia of rest or inertia of motion? Yes, it is an example for inertia of rest. What may be the reason? Since initially the pile of carom's coin is at the state of rest, it is an example for inertia of rest. The table is clear to you and you could be able to identify each situation into an example for inertia of rest and inertia of motion. Dear students, so let us conclude this session as the tendency of a body to remain in its state of rest or in state of motion by itself is known as inertia. There are two types of inertia of rest and inertia of motion. I think this topic is clear to you. Dear students, Now let me ask you a question. A running athlete find it difficult to stop at the finishing line. What may be the reason? Yes, it is due to inertia. Inertia is the tendency of a body to continue in the state of rest or in state of motion by itself. In the case of running athlete, he or she is in the state of motion and due to inertia, it is difficult to stop at the finishing line. Dear students, please take your note and write down the questions given. And we will discuss these answers in the next class. First question, state Newton's first law of motion. Second question, what do you mean by inertia? Third question, what are the two different types of inertia? Activity assignment, find out the application of inertia from our daily life situations. In this session, we deals with Newton's first law of motion and subtitle called inertia and two different types of inertias, that is inertia of rest and inertia of motion. I think you could be able to classify different life situations into inertia of rest and inertia of motion. Hope you understand this section. Thank you.